Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing Swords and Strongholds, a game of mouse strategy. Now, this game was put out by Burning Wheel and Archaea, and is in the Mouse Guard universe. Now, I want to preface this review by saying that I am, in fact, a big fan of the Mouse Guard graphic novels. When I saw this game for sale at Burning Wheel's booth at last year's Gen Con, I could not help myself. I ran right over and bought it. Now, this is based on a game that the Mouse Guard play in one of the Legends of Mouse Guard graphic novels in a pub, which is very thematic and really cool. This is actually the game that they show the Mouse Guard playing in the graphic novel. The game is a two-player abstract strategy game. And what does that mean? Well, a two-player abstract strategy game are games like chess, checkers, nine men's Morris. They're games where you have two armies in an abstract manner on a field of battle, and they move around on the board and attempt to win you the day. However, this game adds a hand of cards, which most classic abstract strategy games do not have. So here's the board. Now, the board is made of solid wood, no hinges. On the front of the board, you have lines carved into it to create a grid. And then for the pieces, you have these nice little plastic mice, which are obviously meant to appear as if they are carved stone. Now, you've got the black side and the white side, one for each player, of course. Each side gets 4 mice. There's his tail. Now, a little side note for Burning Wheel, if you guys ever decide to put a little money into coming up with an upgraded set of actually stone carved pieces, I would definitely buy those, and I would put good money into a set of actual stone carved pieces. But as it is, these plastic pieces are quite cute and funny, and I like them. Now, you take turns setting up on the board. You can place your mice in any of the intersections on the starting row and the second row into the board, but you cannot place them along the edge of the board. In fact, your mice can never voluntarily move into spaces on the edge of the board because that would capture them. Now, because of the fact that there is, just as one little negative here, there is no note in the book as to who sets up first or how you set up. We do it as a house rule that the player that is going to go first sets up first all 4 of their mice, and then the other player sets up theirs, and it works just fine. It doesn't give any kind of significant advantage or disadvantage. One interesting thing, though, is since you get to choose where your mice go on the first 2 rows, when the game starts, you're often looking across the board at mice set up in a totally different formation than your own. Here is a good example of a starting setup for the mice. As you can see, the mice were set up in a completely different manner than their opponent's mice. The black mice are set up with 3 in the front and 1 in the back, whereas the white mice have more of an arrow formation. You also then draw a hand of 3 cards from the deck. Now, the deck comes in a nice little separate box that's within the big box that's about the size of a deck of cards box. It has 3 varieties of cards, which are shown here on the back, only 3, and those are Swords, Strongholds, and Diplomacy cards. Now, here's what the deck looks like. It's got that lovely sepia tone, yellow-brown kind of feel of aged parchment or aged paper. It's very thematic in that regard. I like that. And the 3 cards in the deck, again, are Swords, which, let me show you there. There's a Swords card. Strongholds. Let me show you a Strongholds card. And Diplomacy. Now, as you can see, the card just has the picture and the label. It doesn't have any text, but it's not hard to keep track of what these cards do. There's only 3 cards in the deck. You get 3 cards in your hand. You set up your pieces on the board, and then you're ready to play. The objective of the game is to defeat your opponent in one of 2 ways. The first way to defeat your opponent is by capturing all of their pieces. Now, this is harder than it sounds. I've only seen it happen a couple of times. Far more often, you win in the other method, which is by building a stronghold on one of your opponent's 2 back squares. This doesn't make sense quite yet. Give me a second. I'm going to explain it. So on your turn First, you move a mouse. Then, you choose if you want to play a card. You don't have to play a card, but you can, and they do augment your move. The mouse moves one intersection, forward, backward, left, or right, no diagonals. After you move the mouse, you choose a card from your hand to play if you like. So you say, well, I want to play a sword card. Now, sword card allows the mouse that you just moved one intersection to move two additional intersections. The only restriction on that is that those two intersections must be at a 90-degree or right angle from each other. No reference to the original move, just each other. So you move your mouse one intersection forward, backward, left, or right. Then you play the card. You move him one more intersection forward, back, left, or right. And then you move him a third move that has to be 90 degrees from the second move. When doing the sword move, not the normal move, you may push enemy mice if your move would come in contact with them. You push them one intersection in the direction that you were going, and if you push them either into the edge of the board or into a stronghold of either side, you capture that mouse, and that is the only way to capture mice in the game. Now, the second card that you could play is the Stronghold card. Now, when you play the Stronghold card, the mouse that you just played is no longer a mouse. He becomes a stronghold. So you move the mouse from the intersection to one of the adjacent spaces of the board. And it's very easy to spot which mice are mice and which are strongholds, because the mice are on the intersections and strongholds are on the spaces. While a stronghold, the piece counts as being on all of the adjacent intersections to that stronghold. And when you make that stronghold, if you can move, if there are any mice on those adjacent intersections when you make the stronghold, first you must try to move them one space towards their own side of the board to get them out of the way. If they cannot move one space towards their own side of the board, then you move them one space horizontally to get them out of the way. If you cannot move all the mice one space to get them out of the way to make your stronghold, it is an illegal move and you cannot make that stronghold. Once the stronghold is in place, again though, you can use swords to push mice into that stronghold from either side, friend or enemy, and that will capture them. The final card is Diplomacy. Now, you play Diplomacy, and then you figure out which enemy piece is closest to the piece that just moved that you played Diplomacy on. If the piece is another mouse, you and that mouse swap places, and this can be a really great offensive or defensive card because you can suddenly jump behind enemy lines and be that much closer to making your stronghold in one of their back corners, or you can take your opponent's mouse that was making a suicide run for one of your back corners and throw him back at your opponent's side. The other thing you can do with this is you can force enemy strongholds to come out of their strongholds. If the closest enemy piece is a stronghold, you force them to become a mouse again. You move them to one of the adjacent intersections of your choice, and they are now a mouse again. On your turn, you may also choose to make one of your strongholds become a mouse again. That will be your move, though. You go to one of the adjacent intersections, you make one additional move with that mouse, and you cannot play a card on that turn. Very important. The last thing you can do is, instead of making a move, if you have all three cards in your hand, you reveal them to your opponent, you discard the three of them, and then you can take one of the previously captured mice from this game and put them back on one of the first two starting rows that they normally would have been able to start the game on. Once you're done with your turn, you draw back up to a hand of three cards, and your opponent goes, and you go back and forth until someone makes a stronghold on one of their opponent's back corners, or until you capture all of your opponent's pieces. That's how this game is played. I hope I didn't forget anything. I think I gave you a thorough explanation. But how is this game? And the answer is great. I love this game. When you just have one person to play against, just one opponent, and if you often do, this is a fantastic abstract strategy game. I will go through 2 or 3 plays of this. I have had plays that go very quickly, like 15 minutes. I have had plays that can go over half an hour, but usually that's with people who are more experienced players and know how to properly play defensively. The average amount of time for one of these games is about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'll play it again. and sometimes a third or fourth time before moving on to another two-player abstract strategy game. I do have a handful in my stable for those occasions when I have one person who's looking to play some games with me, and we'll run through a few of these abstract strategy games in a row. Now, I like this game quite a bit. On Board Game Geek, they have a great rating system that goes from 1 to 10 stars. And on BoardGameGeek.com, I gave this game 8 out of 10 stars, which means I have really enjoyed this game and would highly recommend it to other players, and that is accurate. I am recommending this game to you if you like two-player abstract strategy games. But let's get another opinion. Lynn, on a scale of 1 to 10, how many stars would you give Swords and Strongholds? So she'd only give it 6 stars, which means has to be in the mood to play it. And now that's a good example of how not every game is for every person. She's not a big fan of the abstract strategy games, never liked chess, and only moderately liked checkers. So for her, this game is a game that if she's really in the mood to play it, she will play it, and she has played it with me, but she definitely doesn't have as much excitement for this game as I do. It's not exactly her cup of tea. But, that being said, it is my cup of tea, and I am the board game captain. So, there you have it. Mouse Guard, 8 out of 10 stars for me, 6 for Lynn. If you liked this review and would like to see more, please, please, please like and subscribe. Also, I'm going to be submitting this review to BoardGameGeek.com. If you're a member over there, please hit the like button on my video when it comes up. I am going to be making many more reviews, so stay tuned. If you have any comments, if you'd like to say things that I did right, things that I did wrong, or you think I'm ugly, just put it in the little comments down below. And if you have any suggestions on future reviews or things you would like to see me change, again, just put it in the comments down below. So, until next time, game on.